Colton Parayko tells the Sabres thanks, but no thanks. His telling the team no and where they pivot from here. Coming up on the Locked On Sabres podcast.
You're Locked On Sabres, your daily podcast on the Buffalo Sabres. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, everybody, and welcome into this Thursday trade deadline eve edition of the Locked On Sabres podcast. Thanks for making us your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you listen to your podcast. Thanks for watching the show if you are watching along today. And if you're not, you can check us out on YouTube. Be sure to like and subscribe if you are. And perfect time to get into our Everydayers Club. If you would like access to our Locked On Sabres Discord, which goes from Buffalo to Minsk. I'm not making a joke there. We actually have a Locked On Sabres Everydayer that's in our Discord from Minsk that lives in Minsk, Belarus. So, and all over the globe, we're talking about the team in there. Trade deadline of stuff, of course, the games. And if you want access to that and you want ad-free versions and you want other deals, go to lockedonsabres.supercast.com and use the promo code DEADLINE because for the next couple of days, you're going to get a free month if you use that code. You can try it out, see if you like it, and if you do, then you can stick around for a couple of bucks a month from there. Sneaky Joe DiBiase here on a Thursday. There is a lot of news to get to and to catch up on in terms of the trade market, and it is fast and furious. For the third day in a row, I've kind of had a show interrupted by news. That happened again today, finding out what Colton Parayko's decision was going to be on whether or not to waive his no-trade clause. And we didn't really get to the trade itself and how he would have fit into the role. Because as I was telling you, we're recording a show about that. We found out that Parayko was not going to do the deal, didn't want to do it. So there's a lot to get to on this front. I'm having a tough time finding ideas to pivot to from this, but I have a couple, and I want to do that a little bit later on. One of them is revisiting the Robert Thomas trade, and I still believe that there is a chance that that could happen. So a little more on that coming up on today's show as well. But of course, the news was that Colton Parayko was going to be traded to the Buffalo Sabres in exchange for a pretty penny. It was going to be a first-round pick, which coincidentally would have been the Sabres' first-round pick in a year where they hosted the NHL draft. So that's an interesting dynamic. And Radim Mrtka, the Sabres' 9th overall pick from the 2025 NHL draft. Big right shot defenseman playing Seattle right now in the WHL, was going to be a part of the deal as well. Expensive for Parayko, who was a 32-year-old defenseman, right shot guy, 22-plus minutes a night, Team Canada, shutdown defenseman, big, physical, mean, cup winner, playoff experience. Sure, not as good as he was 3 to 5 years ago. I still think relatively a good player. Some of his defensive metrics, even strength defense at Evolving Hockey, the 4th best defenseman in the league this year, and by expected, the 20th best defensive defenseman in the league this year. So maybe getting a little bit of luck on that hand, but still, top 20 is very good, very strong. And that's who Jarmo Kekäläinen was chasing and was willing to pay the price for. And that would have been interesting, right? Because they have a top 4. And we talked about this a bit when we spoke about Justin Falk, that it's a little bit of a level beyond the just add a third pair defenseman for your depth and you'll be okay. This is a top pair, second pair guy that is either playing below his caliber on your third pair, or you're bumping someone that's in your top 4 down to the third pair. And I actually like that idea. I liked the idea of pairing Owen Power with Colton Parayko, shutdown line that goes out against the other team's top line, further allowing Dahlin and Samuelsson to dominate whoever they're playing against. Byram goes down to the third pair. I even actually like the idea of rotating Owen Power's partner. Hey, when you're up a goal or two in the third period, Parayko goes and plays with Owen Power. If you're down a goal in the third period and you need offense, Byram goes up with Owen Power. You have options if he's on your team. But of course, he will not be on their team. Colton Parayko says no. He had the no trade clause. It was his right to say no. I am a little surprised and very disappointed. And I think, especially with this detail, the next time he's in Buffalo, and maybe that'll be next year, likely, he's probably getting booed because that's what we do with guys who said no to you, right? Like, I remember on a small level as I was at a prospects game at Harbor Center, the prospects challenge, maybe in like 2015, 2016. Will Butcher. Remember Will Butcher, star college defenseman? He actually had a cup of coffee with the Sabres a little bit later on, but, not a very good player. But we thought he was going to be. Before he played in the NHL, college free agent, he told the Sabres, no thanks. And he came back to Buffalo at Harbor Center in a prospects challenge game. And a couple thousand Sabre fans in Harbor Center booed Will Butcher. We will boo you if we've got a reason to. And Colton Parayko has given fans a lot of reason to. More than just he wanted to stay in St. Louis. And I would have understood that completely. You want to stay in St. Louis because you've been there for 11 years and you love the organization and you want a cup there and his girlfriend is from St. Louis. Like, okay, you just don't want to move. That's fine and acceptable. I don't know how the Blues will feel about that because they're clearly trying to rebuild here. And if I'm the Blues today, I'm looking at Parayko and going, what the hell, man? I know, like, okay, you didn't want to go there, but you can't stay here. We are trying to rebuild. You're a 32-year-old defenseman that has value. What do you think we're going to want to do with you? And that creates such an awkward situation because, is Parayko going to be happy now for the next 4 years being in a place that he knows doesn't want him in the picture and would rather trade him? That doesn't seem comfortable. But I guess maybe he will get dealt elsewhere, which will only further enrage Sabre fans, and for good reason. He reportedly, according to Frank Saravelli, would be willing to go to LA or Anaheim. He would be willing to go out west. And, even that is somewhat understandable. He is from Western Canada. He actually went to college, played college hockey at University of Alaska Fairbanks. So, Western guy. St. Louis is Midwest, so him not wanting to come to the East, that's one thing. Now, if he comes somewhere else in the East, now it's up to a 10, the anger, I think. But if he goes out west, you still have the right to be angry. It still makes a little bit more sense to why he would say no to Buffalo, not because the team isn't good, because he'd rather be somewhere in the West. I guess that's what we think of the mindset right now. I do believe he gave it serious consideration because if Colton Parayko, his gut reaction to being traded to Buffalo, finding that out through the media or finding that out through his agent, however he found out, if he was totally against the idea of coming to Buffalo, then we would have found out that this trade was going to get killed immediately. And we didn't. It took 16, 17 hours, more than that even, before we found out, no, he doesn't want to come. I believe he gave it serious consideration because remember during the Jack Eichel trade sweepstakes, there was a night, I was hosting the nightcap on WGR in Buffalo, which aired from 7 to 9 p.m. A late night report from Kevin Weeks of ESPN. Weeks said that there was a deal on the table being talked about between Buffalo and Calgary that would have sent Jack Eichel to the Flames, and the Flames would be sending as part of their package Matthew Tkachuk going back to Buffalo. And before I was done with the segment that I was talking about that trade in, we had it from Tkachuk's agent that Tkachuk's not waiving his no-trade clause to go to Buffalo, or he's not signing an extension to go to Buffalo. We found out within minutes Tkachuk was not interested in going to the Buffalo Sabres. With Parayko, it took almost a full day. I would believe he did give it consideration. You don't have to care about that. It doesn't have to make you want to like him or dislike him any less going forward. But I do think he gave it thought. And the team being good is probably what did that? I don't know. Did Tage Thompson reach out to him? They had played before together in St. Louis and coming up, as young players with the Blues. So maybe, but whatever. It doesn't matter. He's not coming to Buffalo. And I think there is an argument that it could be a good thing for them because not everybody loved this idea. I know Travis Yost of TSN is one. He did not like this idea for the Sabres at all. I did like it. I didn't love it. It wasn't my favorite idea, but I understood it, and I definitely liked it, would have loved it even more if it was going to come with salary retention, which we didn't actually find out about between the Sabres and the Blues. So disappointing beyond just that you don't get Colton Parayko, but it's a continuation of, am I still living in this world where, by the way, like everybody in the NHL's got trade protection, that the Sabres still are one of these teams that players don't want to come to? I mean, I still believe because of the season they're having that they are much more of a destination than they have been in the previous 5 to 10 years. But it still doesn't make them one of the marquee places in the league to go to. They're not Tampa. They're not, I guess, in this instance, they're not Anaheim. They are not that. I still think, though, there would be a lot more players today that would say yes to them than would have a year ago, 2 years ago. But one of them is not Colton Parayko, and it's a reminder that not everybody is going to take you off their list. There will still be players that will leave you on there, and we found one of them. What will they do instead? Jarmo Kekäläinen, very clearly, between the two big ideas he's chased this week, Robert Thomas and Colton Parayko, is looking for a big swing. What else could he do now that this idea has died? We'll talk about that coming up on the Locked On Sabres podcast. Today's episode of Locked On Sabres is presented by Factor. Cold days, and we've had a lot of those recently. Packed schedules, big goals. That's winter. But when there's not a lot of time to cook, eating well can feel like another thing on the to-do list. That's where Factor comes in. Factor makes healthy eating easy with fully prepared meals that are designed by dietitians and crafted by chefs. So you can eat well without the planning, prepping, or cooking. Factor meals are always fresh, never frozen, ready in about 2 minutes, and the ingredients stand out: lean proteins, colorful veggies, whole foods, and healthy fats. No refined sugars, no artificial sweeteners, no refined seed oils. And you get a lot of variety, 100 rotating meals every week, so it never gets boring. Options like high protein, calorie smart, Mediterranean diet, even the new Muscle Pro collection for strength and recovery, perfect for busy weeks. And if you still want meals that support your goals without all the stress, you get that too. So head to factormeals.com/LockedOnNHL50off. Once again, factormeals.com/LockedOnNHL50off, 50, and use code LockedOnNHL50off as well to get 50% off and free breakfast for a year. Eat like a pro this month with Factor. New subscribers only. Varies by plan. One free breakfast item per box for 1 year while subscription is active. Sneaky Joe DiBiase back here on the Locked On Sabres podcast. No Colton Parayko trade for the Buffalo Sabres. What will they do instead? There are not many ideas leading into Friday's trade deadline that graduate to the level of a Colton Parayko trade. There's not many. I do think one of them that I still do consider to be possible is revisiting the Robert Thomas trade idea. And I feel like we've gotten further indication today that those talks are going to pick up again. Doesn't mean it has to result in a deal, but there was a report today that Utah, the Mammoth, who were originally one of the teams that were in on Thomas, are planning on taking another go at that idea. I fully expect the Sabres will make another run at that idea. I'd be stunned if they didn't. He's not been traded. Until he is, he's the best player available. By far. 26 years old, 80-point center. We've gone through it multiple times. He is the best player. And to me, you are doing yourself a disservice if you do not exhaust all options to get him to come here. And by the way, this is something I pointed to a little bit yesterday. Parayko now being off the table eliminates not just the Parayko deal, but it eliminates the big mega trade that had been talked about between the Sabres and Blues that was going to include Thomas and Parayko. What if the Sabres and the Blues revisit a trade involving Robert Thomas that does not include Colton Parayko because it can't include Colton Parayko anymore? Maybe there's a shot of them going back after that. If I were Jarmo, that would still be goal number one for me. Go get Robert Thomas. Find yourself a depth defenseman along the way, and don't worry about the caliber of it, because Thomas makes you a significantly better team because of how good he is. Hopefully a better power play player, and gives you a lot of assurance down the middle at center. So Thomas, to me, is still the name. While we're on the Blues, it is just worth pointing out that they're like the only team we're really talking about this week. And I don't mean to do that on purpose. It's just kind of the nature of all the rumors and the reports that we're getting. It's all Sabres and Blues. It was Thomas. It was Parayko. It was Justin Falk. I guess all guys are going to be different, right? Like, in my mind, something in my mind will say, well, because Parayko said no to the Sabres, then why wouldn't all the other Blues who have no trade protection say the same thing? That doesn't have to be true, though. All these guys could be different, right? Thomas might be closer with Tage. Thomas might like his role more in Buffalo than Parayko was going to like his role. That could have been part of it, by the way. Like, that has not been said by anybody, but maybe Parayko looked at the Sabres blue line and said, I don't really think they need me. I would rather go to a team where I'm a solidified number one or top pair defenseman. It's possible. Thomas, I think, would expect to play at the top of the lineup because he's just simply a better player and wouldn't have that same concern. So, modified no trade clause for some of these guys. That is going to be the deal with Justin Falk. He has a 15-team no trade list. Depends when that trade list was submitted. If he submitted it 2 years ago, then the Sabres are on it. I would guarantee it. If the list was submitted this week, they might not be. So, no Parayko. What about Falk? Could very well be an idea here. While we're on the Blues, are there any other ideas on St. Louis that are maybe smaller versions of these trades that they could land on? Cam Fowler on the Blues, not somebody that I think the Sabres would be interested in. He actually is not even kicked in yet to an extension that'll pay him $6.1 million for 3 years starting next year. So don't believe that is the case. There are a couple of other veteran players, but nobody really stands out for me on the blue line. Braden Shen would be the name up front. That's a lesser idea. He's also got a 15-team no-trade clause. He's a 34-year-old that is not the same player at all, not on the level of any of these other guys we're talking about, and has 2 years left in his deal. Also not my favorite idea. While we're on guys that we've already talked about, Elliot Friedman did say today, this afternoon, that he wonders if the Sabres are going to revisit the Rasmus Ristolainen trade idea. That is one that I more and more have softened on, and I'm still yet afraid that's the most likely move sitting here right now, that the Sabres will trade for Ristolainen. There was a story this week that the asking price from Philadelphia for Risto is a first-round pick plus. And in my mind, there is no possible earthly way you can give Philadelphia something like that for Ristolainen. That is more than what the Flyers gave up for him 5 years ago with the Sabres. Crazy land to think that is the price on Risto. So if that price comes way down, he really could be the guy that they end up acquiring. There's one other name that we have spoken about we've not spoken about at all. He's a younger defenseman. He's played with Lindy Ruff. He and a couple of other ideas to fill in the right shot defenseman that Jarmo has now showed us. That's what he wants. What about Simon Nemec, who played for Lindy, when we come back on the Locked On Sabres podcast? Sneaky Joe here on Locked On Sabres. We're presented by Indeed. Workplace chaos, deadlines that are stacking up, inbox overflowing, and the one position that you have to fill still sitting open. When the pressure is on and you need the right hire, this is a job for sponsored jobs. Indeed sponsored jobs helps you reach the right people who will actually fit what you're looking for, skills, experience, location, so you're not just hoping that the right candidate stumbles across your post. Here's a stat. In the minute that I've been talking to you, companies like yours made 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. Spend less time searching, more time actually interviewing candidates who will check all your boxes. Less stress, less time, more results. When you need the right person to cut through the chaos, this is a job for Indeed sponsored jobs. Listeners of this show get a $75 sponsored job credit to help get your job the premium status that it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. Just go to Indeed.com/podcast right now. Support our show by saying that you heard about Indeed on Locked On Sabres. Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? This is a job for Indeed sponsored jobs. Sneaky Joe back here on the Locked On Sabres podcast. The trade deadline is tomorrow. We will keep you updated throughout Text Club, on our Discord. Go to lockedonsabres.supercast.com and sign up, and we'll be all hanging out in there on deadline day, which is at 3 o'clock, by the way. One of those, though, where moves will come in after 3 o'clock, will be reported on after 3. Jarmo is expected to meet with the media at 4, but if it goes late, then, of course, he'll move that back and nobody will mind. If Jarmo Kekäläinen is going big game hunting, which I said earlier in the week, I think he should. And I'm glad that he is. I want to be careful, though, not to, just because I'm excited about him being the GM and the ideas that are being kicked around, I want to be careful not to give full credit just for trying. Because that was always my problem with Kevyn Adams, is Kevyn Adams always wanted to pat himself on the back because he was trying to make big moves, which, by the way, I do not believe he was trying to make moves of this magnitude. And I also thought it was always a mistake by the Sabres and Kevyn Adams to not let it leak the deals that they were close on or trying to make, because it gave the appearance that you then weren't trying at all. And I don't know, maybe some fans are different. I'd rather know, and I'd rather, have the feeling of, okay, well, it didn't work out because the player didn't want to come here. But, man, I got a GM that is swinging and swinging big. If you're swinging, let everybody know. It'll only help you. And Adams never got that. And I'm not saying Kekäläinen is doing that on purpose. I just think the Blues are the one who leaked the Parayko trade to try to pressure him to sign off on the deal. Which, again, I think it's so weird and awkward if he continues to play there. So anyways, no Parayko deal. What other pivots are there other than the Blues ideas and other than some that we talked about, like Rasmus Ristolainen? And this could be any position. I just think big moves. Is Sergei Bobrovsky totally off the table? I don't know that he is. I would predict that they don't make a move in net. I think they are going to ride with their 3 goaltenders into the playoffs, and whoever's hotter between Luukkonen and Lyon will start the playoffs, and that guy will keep going until he's not playing well. But because Jarmo has a history with Bobrovsky in Columbus, and that he is available, and that he has won back-to-back Stanley Cups, and that he is now a proven playoff winner, I don't want to throw it out completely. So I'm going to put that over here for now. The other idea that I wanted to broach that has a connection to not Jarmo, but Lindy, is Simon Nemec of the New Jersey Devils, who was the second overall pick in 2022, has had a pretty rocky career so far with the Devils. He has found himself out of the lineup sometimes, and he's been a part of trade rumors before. He is still only 22 years old. Played for Slovakia at the Olympics, and I thought looked pretty good. Point-wise, then having a career high, 21 points. It's only his 3rd year, and he's never played more than 60 games in a season. He is playing just short of 20 minutes a night this year, and he has some good advanced numbers. They're more on the offensive end, though, than the defensive end from the blue line. So what you have with him is right shot defenseman, drafted really highly, 6'1", 190, probably closer to 200 actually right now. That's probably his weight from when he was a rookie. And I do think he's a player that would be an upgrade on your third pair, kind of in a way like Parayko, though. I just don't know that you need to invest that much. And it's different than Parayko because Parayko is an established veteran and a mean physical defenseman that projects to be the playoff type of defenseman. That's not Nemec. Like, he is not going to be, that is not going to be that guy. Like, a question would come up whether or not to pay him, and that would come up very quickly because at 21 years old, it's almost kind of like you're adding another Owen Power, a guy that would help you and is probably pretty good, but are you going to be left wanting more? Is there more development there? And do I have to go through some trials and tribulations with him before he becomes a fully formed player? Right now, you're in a stage where you'd rather have the fully formed player. Nemec, by the way, he has an expiring deal. He'll be an RFA, of course, at the end of it, but you have to decide whether or not to pay him this offseason. And what will that look like? That might look like a bridge. It should look like a bridge deal. So you shouldn't have to pay him too much. Shouldn't be that big a problem. I just think the young defensive idea is not as good of a fit as the veteran defensive idea, given what the rest of the Sabres blue line looks like. Guys that are in the smack dab middle of their primes, you want to add another developing guy. Now, the other thing about Nemec, though, is, and this is why I brought him up, because I do think it's possible that Lindy Ruff, who coached him for a year in New Jersey, and honestly, year one went a lot better for him than year two did. Would Lindy say to Jarmo, I like him and I can make this work? I can get him to play this role and get him to play this role well. He's a right shot defenseman. That's what we're looking for. We could buy low on a guy that was drafted super high. It's possible. Kind of like Bobrovsky, though. I'm only doing it based on the connection he has to someone in the Sabres organization, which does matter, and that can oftentimes be the source of a trade. But it's not my favorite idea because I do think the developing player versus the solidified player makes it different. There are other big ideas out there. There is Elias Pettersson, of course, who I'm kind of out on because of the salary and all the questions surrounding what he is right now and what's been going on in his head for the last 2 years. Other big ideas that would qualify on the scale of these Blues trades we've been talking about. I need Nashville to be willing to make trades. That's what you would need. And at the moment, the Stamkos, O'Reilly, like these are part of those, discussions. It sounds like neither one of them are going to want to trade unless Nashville's doing a full sell. And I don't know that we have evidence of that yet. If Nashville decides, all right, let's blow it all up, then I think either O'Reilly or Stamkos are trades that are of the magnitude of these Blues trades. Without that, I don't really know that there's another idea that makes sense for the Buffalo Sabres that is like this. Maybe Trocheck, because of the center position. They went after Thomas. He's done faceoffs, but Minnesota balked at the price on Trocheck. So these prices got to come down. I still want Robert Thomas. That's my stance. Until the deadline passes or until he has been traded away, and now that the Sabres still have their first-round pick, by the way, for next year, and Radim Mrtka, I want Robert Thomas for the Buffalo Sabres by tomorrow. We'll see what we get. We'll be tracking it throughout the day. We'll be dropping shorts, so we'll have little episodes along the way when the Sabres make deals, if they do, and we'll have a full recap at the end of the day tomorrow as well here on the Locked On Sabres podcast. We'll talk to you then. Enjoy Sabres and Penguins, which is coming up just a couple hours now from time of recording. And we'll talk tomorrow. Maybe the Sabres will be tied for first place the next time we're talking to you. Here in the Locked On Sabres podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now your number one sports podcast network.